glad you could make it. We're going to spend a little time in the shop today because I went down to Amazing RC store and got myself this, a Red Cat aluminum transmission housing. So we're going to switch you over to the bench cam and show you the procedure to put this in. All right, so here we go. Gen8 AXE that we will be installing the transmission on. Let's take that out. You're going to want to make yourself a nice clean work area. Make sure you got your trusty little tool kit, an Ugga-Dugga. Let's remove the battery. Yeah, Ugga-Dugga. This is Ugga-Dugga.
Never heard the term Ugga-Dugga.
Well, that's because you don't watch Kevin Talbot. Ugga-Dugga, man. Okay, there goes my battery. Pull out the straps. First thing I'm going to do is remove the battery tray. Requires a 2mm hex or Allen key. 3 flat head screws, 2 rounded head screws, and then another screw in the wheel well on the North American passenger side, also known as the right side of the vehicle. Alright, so those screws are out. Now let me get into this one. Put these screws in a safe spot away from where I'm working, just so I don't knock them on the floor afterwards as well.
Which you usually do.
Yes, thank you. That still has a thread, even though it's not connected, so I can just leave that in place. I don't want to cut that zip tie, so I'm just going to move it out of the way. If we turn it around, this little beauty is what we're changing. It's where the motor goes in and houses all the gearing inside here. And of course, as you can see, I already have an aluminum transfer case. Thank you, Morgan and Father Christmas. So we're going to want to actually remove this one screw on this side that's holding that drive shaft in place. I guess, is that called a grub screw? I think it is, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. You can look at the new part and I can see that there are 2 screws here in the side and we're holding that to the truck. So I'm going to go after those next.
And that would be in the left side of the vehicle. North American driver's side.
Okay, so those are out. I'm going to take this motor plate off of the original transmission. I took that grub screw off, so that just slides right off.
So when I put it all together, everything should mesh up properly the way it did with the original part. Of course, we're going to double check and make sure it does. But
I'm keeping all of the screws that I take off of the transmission separate. So all the screws that came off the transmission are over here in a pile. Battery tray screws are over there in a pile. 1.5 out for the access panel. Just slides up off the motor plate. I almost lost it. There it is, the original. And there's my original transmission. So now, the vehicle aside, let's tear this thing down. So we got the access cover off already. You got the one screw on this side, on the same side of the spur. And then on the reverse side, you have these 3 screws. Enough waffle. Okay, and when you open that up, in the AXE case, they're metal. I believe they're also metal now in the V2. If you have original V1, they are actually plastic. So once you lock the spur in place, I just use my thumb. You loosen that bolt, a couple of shims will fall out. 5 shims. Now I can push out this bar. That. And then the spur can come out this way. Nothing on the other end of the spur. I don't know how you guys like to remove bearings, but I use one of these. I just seat it in there. right? Nice and straight, and it comes right out. And the ones that don't have an opening from behind, whatever sits in there normally, take that, just wiggle that out until it pops. We gotta weigh these puppies out. So it's zeroed out. The original part weighs 13.5 grams. The new part weighs 31.2 grams. For the access cover, the original weighs 4.3, let's say 4.5 grams, let's say. The new access cover weighs 14.5 grams. And for the smaller part of the transmission housing, the original housing, 7.4 grams. The new part, 18.2. Now all together, 25.3, 63.8. So now we've got everything out of the original transmission. Now we can start to build the new transmission. I don't know what you guys prefer to use for grease. Now is the time you're going to want to use whatever it is you prefer to use, whether it be marine grease, diff oil, or whatever you guys like to use. There's only one spot to put the smaller of the bearings. Put a little bit of the diff oil in there before and slide that bearing in there. Off camera, I've washed up all the bearings. Sure you didn't want to watch me wash all the bearings. So there's 3 bearings that are the same size, going 2 in here and 1 in here, and then the smaller bearing. I will put diff oil in there afterwards. If you're not sure how much diff oil to put in a little bit more. Right, so now you got your bearings in and everything. Let's add the spur shaft. Get the spur shaft through that bearing. Put the smaller of the 2 gears from the transmission in. I'm going to slide that little shaft through there. And that goes in like that. There was nothing that fell off in between this part and the spur. Just go on to there. You gotta find the notch, and there it goes. The first shim was bent towards the slipper, and the rest of them were bent away. This is gonna be a little wonky until you got it all back together. Put the larger of the 2 gears in. Shaft the lock face down. Drip your oil in your gears. It's not really that essential to have like crazy lube. It's unless you're Kev Talbot and you've got like crazy wheel speed out of your crawlers. And you've got machine screws going into metal. You must use a thread lock. I recommend blue Loctite, because it's if you use the red, then that just means you're not planning on opening it again.
Metal screws going into metal.
See, now that that's all together, that's not all wonky anymore. See that? Once they're all in, I like to give them a nice little torquing. Not like Hercules them in there, but just, you know, a nice little torquing. So much better. Like there's no sound coming out of that. Huh? Can you? Blah, 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 blah.
Alright, now we will fit it. Clean up the workspace. No way, nothing's in the way.
We're going to Loctite the screws and put this back together. Okay, now we got all those back in. Time to fit this back in the truck. I'm so excited. So we got those 2 screws in there, and it was really difficult. We got her in, so let's get the battery tray back on. Now, for anyone who might be watching this video for reference, remember that now 2 of the battery screws are going into metal, so it's important to make sure that those screws get Loctite. So I had a little bit of issue. I had to loosen where the transmission housing connects to the frame. I had to get this all in first. Now I'm just finishing off by tightening the side mount. So I'm just tightening those now. That's a good lesson to learn, I guess, when installing this. Don't tighten it to the frame all the way until the end when you got everything in place. That way everything will line up properly. And of course, last but definitely not least, access cover. So I might not be able to reach with this. Oh man, I'm gonna have to take off my spares. And plug my electronics all back in. I guess we should make sure it works, right? We'll get a GT5. Now the axe is on. Backwards. Forwards. I love that servo. Reefs, baby. Definitely quieter with that transmission housing. Well guys, I hope you liked this bench session. If you're doing this, I hope this video is helpful for you. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep on RCing, keep on keeping on. Ciao for now.